How are you doing, Bruins fans? Welcome into another episode of the UCLA Bruins Insider Podcast here on Sports Illustrated, brought to you by the Fans First Sports Network. It is episode number 19 here on a Friday. We're going to be taking a look at a few player comments prior to this rivalry matchup between the Bruins and Trojans at the Rose Bowl for the Crosstown Showdown this weekend. Huge ball game for both sides, specifically for the Bruins, considering they need to win their final two games to become bowl eligible, which was a major goal for them this year, halfway through the season. Also going to be looking at a few keys to the game and some storylines going forward on both sides of the ball. You can follow myself, Tom Cavanaugh, at TCAV30 on Twitter/X. Follow our insider pages on Twitter/X and Facebook. That is at UCLA Insider on SI. And then straight from the source, just type in UCLA Bruins Sports Illustrated or UCLA Sports Illustrated, and you'll be able to find all of our content posted daily covering the basketball team that just got a win. They're going to be back on Friday playing against Cal State Fullerton at home. But we're focused today on this football matchup, this rivalry game that means so much for both sides. Bruins got the best of them last year, 28-20 win for UCLA on the road at the Coliseum, upsetting an unranked Trojans team, but they still had the number one draft pick in Caleb Williams at quarterback. Ethan Garbers played well, TJ Harden as well, the running back. We'll get into all of that in just a moment, but I want to start off leading with a couple of comments from some players earlier this week. Senior offensive lineman Josh Carlin, he's going to be playing in his sixth rivalry game. So he's been around the program for a long time, redshirt, COVID, all that stuff kind of factoring in to him being with the Bruins for so long. And he mentioned he stays excited no matter what, if it's his first, second, fifth, or sixth time playing against the Trojans. He talked about how he's got to kind of help teach a lot of these young guys what this rivalry means. And also said that they're not going to really get the feel of it until they really step out onto the field and witness what it is when these two teams match up. There's going to be a lot of trash talk. He talked about that too, said the offensive and defensive linemen don't do as much, but it's more so the wide receivers and DBs. But there's going to be some jawing. It's going to be a great matchup, a lot of high intensity, because even the USC at 5-5, they're trying to become bowl eligible as well. Senior linebacker Cade Medrano, he spoke as well. He's going to be in his fourth and final rivalry match as well. And he kind of gave the same take. He is not a California native, just like Carlin is. We'll talk about Ethan Garbers in a minute. He's also a SoCal native. So Medrano, being from Pueblo, Colorado, he's had to kind of learn this rivalry. He didn't grow up in it like these two other guys, Carlin and Garbers. But he's learned over the years, and he's kind of embodied it into his framework as a player, what this rivalry game means. And he's out for blood, man. He is very, very excited and hungry to go out there, crack some skulls. Can't wait to go up against Woody Marks, the running back, one of only 5 guys in the Big Ten that have over 1,000 rushing yards this season. Very good RB that can also be used in the pass game. There's a small stat that he has been talking about Woody Marks. He has caught a pass in 55 straight games. He's a fifth-year senior, first year with the Trojans after playing 4 years at Mississippi State. And that's going to be Medrano's key piece right there, is seeing Marks in the open field and laying a big hit on him when he's trying to make a catch. Now we'll talk about the quarterback, senior Ethan Garbers. He has been in this matchup his entire life. When he spoke to the media, he talked about how he had gone to the Coliseum as a kid and watched this matchup unfold. And now he gets to play in it for the fourth time. He's coming off a win last year, slung 155 yards and 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions for Ethan in a statement win to finish out that year, helped them to a positive record. Garbers was very impressive in that game against USC and hoping to do the same exact thing this year. But it's really cool when you see a guy that his entire life he's grown up knowing UCLA and USC football, seen what it's been like, and just come out and be a part of it once again for his final senior year. All of these guys, all 3 guys we're talking about, seniors playing in their final rivalry game. It's going to be really, really fun to watch them just lay it all on the line on Saturday night. We'll move into the 3 keys for the game, kind of breaking it down one by one. There's some offensive and defensive stuff for the Bruins that need to be accomplished. And there's a couple big numbers. The first number is going to be the offense. The Bruins will need to score 24 or more points to get the win The big reason because of that, when you go through and you look at this USC schedule, they are 0-5. All 5 of their losses this year, teams have scored 24 or more. When they score less, USC gets it done and wins the ball game. They do not do well in battling in high-scoring games, which is surprising because this team loves to run up the score. I mean, in previous years, they're a high potent offense, but so far this year, I mean, they've been okay. They've been hanging with teams. They haven't really blown anybody out in the last several weeks. Scraping by Nebraska by 8 points last week. So it's going to be all on these Bruins to post a couple of touchdowns, make a couple of field goals, and get above that 24 mark. They've done it twice in their last 4 games. They put up 35 against Rutgers, only scored 20 against Iowa in their win, but then also put up a big number against Nebraska. So this team's trending in the right direction when it comes to scoring points. And when you watch that Washington game, they moved the ball well. I know they came out with the loss. They just struggled in the red zone and couldn't capitalize when turnovers were had on the defensive side. So if this team can capitalize, they can execute in the red zone, they're going to get down there. They just got to finish. Second key to the game is going to be the Bruins defense as a whole. They have to limit this Trojans team to 150 yards or less rushing. When you look at, we talked about Woody Marks. His last 2 games, he's put up over 100. And that just cannot happen. He did it against Nebraska and Washington. This defense for the Bruins, mainly the front 4 and the linebackers as well, have to be there to stop Marks for short gains, have to plug up the holes, not allow him to get out for big 15, 20, 25-yard runs. Because if he starts doing that, pass game's going to open up, and it's going to be a slugfest. Hopefully the Bruins would be able to keep up offensively, but you cannot let Marks get going and in a groove. And he's not the only rusher on this team that's going to be playing. We didn't talk about this in our last podcast regarding Bruins football, but there's some quarterback controversy going on at USC. So Miller Moss, the junior, started the first 9 games of the season. He had a 4-5 record in that time. Started out great. He was a Heisman. He was on the Heisman board when you look at sports books. After he beat LSU his first week, he looked very sharp. Since then, didn't look all that great. 9 interceptions, but had 18 touchdowns. He still ranks inside the top 5 in both categories in TD passes and total yards. But head coach Lincoln Riley made a move for the Nebraska game. He started sophomore Jaden Mayava, who came over from UNLV. He was a starter at UNLV last year, had a pretty darn good season, transferred to the Trojans, and he ran for 20 yards on 5 carries, a very mobile quarterback. I know that's not a huge total, but he hasn't played a ton of snaps. The Bruins do not do well against mobile quarterbacks. You go back to that Husky game. They thrived when Will Rogers was in the game to start. He was a pocket passer. And then freshman Damon Williams Jr. came in for the Huskies, and he dominated. Scored 17 straight points on consecutive drives for the Huskies en route to their win. So they have to be able to contain not only Marks, but the mobile quarterback in Jaden Mayava, who will likely start this game after getting a 28-20 win against Nebraska last week in his first start of the season. Final stat is going to be on the shoulders of running back junior TJ Harden. He needs 85 or more yards this game. He doesn't need a touchdown, considering they took down Iowa by 3, and he didn't score a touchdown, but he had 125 yards on the ground. Now, I don't want to set that number at 100 because Harden's only done it a couple times in his career. But the one time that he did, it was his career best last year in this game. 142 yards rushing, 1 touchdown on the ground, 1 receiving. Harden's career best game was in this rivalry last year. He's trying to replicate that performance. Doesn't need to be 150 yards and a couple of touchdowns, but if he's able to keep that run game alive, establish it, he's coming off a bad week, 33 yards only against Washington, has to find a way to get after this Trojans defense that ranks 5th worst when it comes to run defense. So Harden, I mean, hopefully he's able to move between the tackles. When you watch that game against Iowa, when he did post a $125 on the ground, he started between the tackles. It wasn't working. So he started to bump it outside to the sidelines, get into the open field and make some moves in space, and it worked a lot better for him and the Bruins. So I'd like to see Harden try to bump it outside of the tackles, not so much inside. If it's working between them, go for it. But if they start to find issues there and they cannot block well enough to be able to get him those open lanes, got to try some other schemes. And Harden also He's got over 300 yards receiving this year as well. So I expect him to be utilized in the pass game just as much as the run in this game because, I mean, in this game, everything's on the table. You are not holding anything back. Harden, if he's not getting it going run game-wise, he'll be in the flat wheel routes trying to get a little extra yard after the catch. So TJ Harden, he's going to be the star for this offense, along with Ethan Garbers, who is looking for another great performance. And both these guys trying to win back-to-back games, along with the rest of the Bruins against the Trojans. And this time they'll be at the Rose Bowl. That's going to do it for us here on the UCLA Bruins Insider Podcast. Here on Sports Illustrated, presented by Fans First Sports Network. You can follow myself, Tom Cavanaugh, at TCAV30 on Twitter/X, and then our insider pages at UCLA Insider on SI. We're going to be back tomorrow, giving you a little more right before ball kickoff at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. It's a late start on the East Coast, 10:30 p.m. over here. So it's prime time for some. It's Pac-12 after dark, or Big Ten after dark, if you will. These two teams are first year in the Big Ten Conference. If USC gets a win, they're bowl eligible. If the Bruins win, they'll win back-to-back games, 3 of the last 4 over USC, and they will need a win next week against Fresno State to be able to become bowl eligible and finish 6-6. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your night.